When it comes to the last part of a franchise, there are usually several questions that the final chapter will answer. And that's definitely the case for the third movie in the Downton Abbey franchise, which, by the way, has been confirmed with a release date of September 12th, 2025. And there's even more big news. One major newcomer is Paul Giamatti, who will reprise his role from the TV series as a free-spirited Levinson. So here we are, ready to answer a bunch of questions and raise even more along the way. Stick around till the end so you don't miss anything. We're diving into every Easter egg we know of. Will Lady Mary divorce Henry Talbot? The first big question surrounding the new movie is, will Lady Mary divorce Henry Talbot? As we saw in the second movie, Downton Abbey, A New Era, Lady Mary really stepped into her leadership role, keeping Downton Abbey intact, despite some temptations. However, her husband Henry Talbot, played by Matthew Good, was noticeably absent, explained as being away at a rally in Istanbul, which kept him away for months. During his absence, including missing important events like Tom and Lucy's wedding and the birth of the Bransons' baby, Lady Mary began to transform into the next Lady Violet, complete with a new romance reminiscent of the Dowager Countess's youthful trysts. In real life, Good missed Downton Abbey, A New Era, because he was filming The Offer for Paramount+. But his absence gave Mary space to explore new connections, albeit one she wisely kept at a distance. She also seemed to reflect on her late husband, Matthew, for the first time in a Downton film, even making a sly reference to Dan Stevens starring as a fairy tale prince in Disney's Beauty and the Beast. Since Henry only made a brief cameo in Downton Abbey 2019 and was absent from A New Era, it leaves us wondering, will Mary and Henry's marriage come to an end in the next film? Romance for Mrs. Patmore? Another key development for the third movie is the blossoming romance between Mrs. Patmore and Mr. Mason. With most of Downton's servants settled down with their spouses, it's finally Mrs. Patmore's turn for love. Throughout the TV series, there was a hint of interest between the cook and Daisy's former father-in-law, but nothing much ever came of it. Daisy and Andy, however, were eager to see Mr. Mason move on, so they took it upon themselves to reignite feelings between him and Mrs. Patmore. The biggest hurdle? Mr. Mason's reluctance to accept being supported by a woman. But all it took was a few talks and a bit of whiskey shared with Barrow to change his mind. This sets Mrs. Patmore up for a happy ending, while Daisy and Andy take over full ownership of the farm. It's a sweet turn of events that adds satisfying closure and sets up a promising future for one of Downton Abbey's most beloved characters. The final chapter in the 1930s. Given that the franchise is rooted in the early part of the 20th century, it feels fitting to bring the series to a close around the same time period. There are certainly many directions Downton Abbey could take after A New Era. While the film bid farewell to Maggie Smith's iconic Lady Violet, the Crawleys welcomed new family members like Lucy Branson and her newborn child. Meanwhile, Thomas Barrow's departure as Downton's butler leaves a vacancy that Mr. Carson must fill, likely by training Andy Parker to take over his role. Most intriguingly, the new film could be set against the backdrop of the turbulent 1930s, a decade marked by economic instability and the looming threat of another world war. This era would serve as a fitting bookend to the franchise, since the first season explored the early days of World War I. By positioning Downton Abbey 3 at the cusp of World War II, the film can highlight the Crawleys adapting to a rapidly changing world, just as they did during the Great War. It would provide a poignant, historically grounded closure to the long-running saga. The Great Depression's impact. One more key detail. Downton Abbey 3 is set in the 1930s, which is exactly when the Great Depression struck. The timing adds a powerful emotional and historical layer to the story. While A New Era ended in 1929, just before the onset of the Depression, the upcoming film must now grapple with this tragic historical event. This allows the filmmakers to explore the financial challenges faced by the Crawley family and their iconic estate. The movie will likely balance creative liberties with historical realism, staying true to the franchise's commitment to accuracy. The characters, particularly Lady Mary Crawley, have always been concerned about whether Downton Abbey would survive the changing times. The Great Depression will only heighten those fears. Since the first film, the series has hinted at the inevitable clash between tradition and the modern world. The 1930s will bring challenges far greater than mere perception. They will bring real survival stakes. Will the Crawleys lose Downton Abbey? The Great Depression could spell the end of Downton Abbey as we know it. It would be a bittersweet ending if the Crawleys could no longer afford their luxurious lifestyle or maintain their household. After all, Downton Abbey is more like a castle than a typical home. If even middle-class families struggled to keep their homes during the Depression, maintaining an estate of this size would be nearly impossible. Just because the Crawleys are wealthy doesn't mean their money is limitless, especially now that Downton Abbey 3 has been confirmed as the final movie. Lady Mary's children are supposed to grow up at Downton Abbey, enjoying the same security it has always provided. If the family is forced to leave, it may signal not only the end of the house, but also the end of a future built on stability, tradition, and legacy. Returning and missing cast members. Downton Abbey has maintained a remarkably consistent cast across its shows and films. While Maggie Smith bid farewell to her role as the Dowager Countess in A New Era, and Matthew Goode couldn't reprise his role due to other commitments, there's still hope that he might return in Downton Abbey 3. Fans have also been clamoring for Lily James to return as Lady Rose, and this might finally happen. The return of familiar faces would offer both nostalgia and the chance to explore new storylines as the franchise concludes. In conclusion, one last thing before we wrap up. The Great Depression may not just bring the end of wealth. It may bring the end of Downton Abbey itself. That's a sobering thought, but also a fittingly powerful one for a franchise that has always been about change, tradition, and resilience. Well, that's a wrap for today's video. But don't worry, we'll be back with more juicy updates on your favorite shows and movies. So keep those peepers peeled and stay tuned for more. Thanks a bunch for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.